Sometimes it's the only way to get this stuff.
Yeah,
It
sometimes it is.
really is sometimes. Sadly enough. Mm.
It's like a
Someone's
lot.
getting tired. They're rubbing their eyes already.
Yeah, my
Uh-oh.
eyes been itching me all day. I don't know.
Allergies.
It might be.
Yeah, like I don't understand some of the toy companies nowadays. They just they have all these licenses and stuff, and they don't do anything with them.
Oh,
Oh,
maybe
hey,
we can get in. Maybe we can get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
What's that,
yeah.
What's that red light I see over in the top?
It's live.
Oh goodness.
Oh,
We're here. We made it.
sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are
Here we are.
back together again with a guest.
Very special guest.
Yeah, it's nice that Dom's back.
Oh God.
Thank you.
Oh boy.
I'm amazed that we can have this many people on at once.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the most we ever had on, right? On this show at least, because we're doubling up with JD and Chan.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I like
I feel kind of like we're the Brady Bunch screen right now, slightly. Because we're like, hi, Brian.
Hey,
Hey.
Dave.
Hey, Dom.
What's going on? Wait,
Like the Brady Bunch.
what's going on, JD?
I'm not touching you.
Stop poking me. Stop poking me.
Anyway,
Anyway, I think we should start this show, right? So,
Sure.
welcome to Tuesday's Breaking the Mold. Happy Tuesday, people. We got the Breaking the Mold crew here again with some special guests. I'm John Addict. I'm going to start from the left of my screen with Mr. Brian Brink. Brian Brink.
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Tuesday. Happy second day of fall. It actually felt like fall today, not like yesterday.
Beautiful weather.
Yep. And yeah, I came off a really good weekend hanging with Bricks up at his shop in Warminster, PA. 2-year anniversary. Again, I just want to wish him congratulations on basically having a homegrown Lego business. 1.7 million pieces, I think it is. That's crazy stuff, man.
Congratulations, Brick.
Congratulations.
Yeah. That's pretty much it for me. Other than that, I was just hanging out, doing yard work.
So you had a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, not bad.
Okay. Look who's back from vacation.
Hello.
What's up, dude?
What's going on, guys? Iceland was beautiful. It was a great trip. Enjoyed it very much so. So
We didn't really
definitely.
have that, but
Oh, fuck you.
no, go ahead.
Jesus Christ.
We want to know. We want to know. How was it?
No,
he's tough.
He just muted himself.
Yep.
oh, did I mute myself?
Oh, no, you're good.
Now you're good.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, everything was great. It was a great, beautiful country. Really beautiful. I can't begin
Can't
to tell
hear
you.
anything.
You can't hear anything? Hello?
I
Tim,
hear
can
you.
you hear us?
Tom.
Do you hear me or no?
I hear you.
You guys can't hear me or Tim
Yep.
can't hear me?
Talk.
Okay,
Keep
okay.
going.
Jesus. So like, yeah, there was a bunch of, bunch of things to see. They're known for their waterfalls. They got like every 5 step there's a waterfall. So there's plenty of waterfalls to see, and just the country and the landscape is beautiful.
Did you go chasing the waterfalls?
Yes, I went to go chasing some waterfalls. But
Mhm.
You're not supposed to do that.
no. We went behind some waterfalls. We went on top of waterfalls, underneath waterfalls, all that good stuff. But it was cute. It was wonderful. If you can make it out there and go see the island itself, it's amazing.
How was
It's
the
beautiful.
food?
Amazing. Like Mostly, lamb. So if you like lamb chops, anything lamb,
I
They
can't
have
hear
it.
him at all.
Oh.
Can you hear any of us?
Can you
Tim?
hear the rest of us, Tim?
Yeah,
Tim,
I can hear you.
You can.
Yeah.
All right.
You can't hear Tom.
It's all right, Dom. When you're
I can-
done, you
I
pop out. You
hear
come
it
back
all.
in. You'll be all right.
Do you want me to pop out right now, or
Not yet. When you're done talking.
Oh, okay. Jesus fuck.
Live show.
So
So-
basically, it was a great time. If you have any questions, let me know. But like it was beautiful. There's so much history to the island, and there's like constant volcano eruptions, and all that good stuff. So
So you're in the land of fire and ice.
correct. There's constantly volcanoes erupting under the 3 glaciers that they have. So it's constant eruptions, and I think they had a big eruption back in 2010 that
I
caused.
had a big eruption in 2010 too. I remember that.
Oh, jeez.
I'm sorry.
So I'm not going anywhere with that. So sorry.
Good on you. Dom.
I was told to be polite today. So no, but it was good. It was good. If you can make it out there, that it's a great country to see, and very expensive. The food was expensive. Not like Manhattan expensive. It's not that crazy, but at the end of the day, if you can manage it on a budget. You could take a trip around the whole island. They call it the Ring Road, and there's many stops and things to see: beaches, black sand beaches, a lot of cliffs, forges, and waterfalls to your eyes' content.
Wait, did you say forges?
Yeah, like forge, like water. It's like an inlet that goes through on both sides of mountains, and
Isn't that like
basically
is that a fjord? Is that what that's
a
called?
fjord. Yeah, fjord.
All
Okay,
right.
sorry,
Okay,
sorry,
just checking.
sorry. Yes.
Construct up. Right. Got it.
Yeah. So it was nice. So, and since Tim can't hear me, I hope he can read lips. Do you want me to pop out now and come back in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go right ahead, Dom.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So, JD and Chan, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm all right. How was your weekend?
Pretty uneventful.
Other than the road rage incident, it was pretty uneventful.
That's how we like it.
Fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So, we got some special guests. Not that Chan's not a special guest, but she was.
I'm not.
Yeah,
It's okay.
You are.
Kind of feel like you're just hanging out again. We have Mr. Josh Fisher from. Josh, you there from Master?
I am.
Okay.
All right.
So, Josh, what's up, man? How you doing? How was your weekend?
Pretty low key weekend. Me and the wife and daughter just hung out around the house Saturday, and then Sunday I spent all day watching football and hanging out online with EE Prime and Vinny and Nick, and we just watched football together and talking trash back and forth. Other than that, very low key weekend. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here tonight. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here too. And Tim, can you hear me? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Tim,
Sorry, I had to go plug in. I was losing power.
it's okay. Our special guest is Mr. Tim Clark. Tim, how was your weekend?
It was really good, actually. I participated in the River Keepers race, kayak race on Saturday.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
wow.
And it was 5K.
Nice.
And much to my amazement, I came in first
No way.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
against the other kayakers. So
That's
that
awesome.
was pretty incredible.
Wow. So 5K on the water.
Yes.
Wow, that's neat.
That's where you put kayaks, Brian. But
The shortest race I've ever done.
don't think it works on the street.
Hey, I thought maybe it's like an Ironman competition. Maybe he ran 3 miles and got in the boat. I don't know. You know me, Dom. I like to
No,
ask questions.
they did have a
Gotcha.
road race also, but
Oh,
and then on Sunday I went to see. Oh gosh, what's the Mystery Science Theater in
Wow.
New Haven, and
In Connecticut.
yes,
Wow, cool.
and the woman who I did the Slingy commercial with was performing in that show. Mayor Slingy,
Slingy. So you made this puppet,
the,
Tim?
the most recent puppet I've done.
Wow.
Very cool.
And what does he come out in? Thank you.
Huh?
Huh?
Where does that puppet come? What does he come out in other than that show?
Slingy is an advertising thing for Sling TV.
Oh,
And
okay.
oh,
It's
okay.
basically all a play on, it's sexual innuendos. So, it's like he pops up and asks people if they want to sling, and they look at him like, like, what did you just say? And
Oh,
You
kind of like
pops
a
up in very odd places.
I like this guy already.
Like-
their
in a
version of
steam-
Netflix
steam
and chill.
In a
Yeah.
steam room, and then in an office cubicle, and then in between a couple who are in bed.
That's
Nice.
It was
I
good.
like
It
this.
was a
This is
nice
fun.
little series. I'm waiting to see if they're going to go forward with it or not.
I'd be concerned on how he got in the bed with the couple.
I don't know if that's any of our business.
So, Tim, they haven't ran commercials yet with Slingy.
Sorry?
They haven't run commercials yet with Slingy. Sling.
No, they have.
They have?
started
Okay.
back in the spring.
Okay.
But I think it's mostly on internet. It's not, like
Yeah, because I seen the commercial about the other two couples, playing with the play on words with the sling and slinging and
yeah.
trying to get other couples to watch sling or to sling with them, which is really just watching TV.
Okay.
It's really watching TV or the network, but other than but it's called sling, so they play on the word.
Correct.
That's pretty awesome.
Cool.
That's
So,
cool.
so Tim, I've seen you at RetroCon. You're talking about kayaking in New Haven. Before the show, you're asking about sports teams like Phillies, the Yankees, and the Giants. So, where are you located? I'm kind of curious.
I live in Connecticut.
Oh,
but
okay.
Okay.
I grew up in Long Island,
Nice.
Hey.
and then I lived in Brooklyn. But
Oh.
my grandfather and my father were both born in the Bronx, so you had no choice but to be a New York Giants and a New York Yankees fan.
Yes, you do. You could have been a Jets fan or a Mets fan.
Well, the thing is, you're going for my grandfather. You're going back to when the Yankees first started playing in the Bronx, and for my dad, he saw Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and all those guys play. So
Oh.
Murderer's Row.
Mm-hmm.
they were diehard Yankee fans. And my grandfather used to take me, and my grandfather actually took me when I was, when my dad was little, took my father to the Negro League games. And I remember my dad saying that it was kind of a defining moment when he was a kid, that the usher came over and told my grandfather that he would take them to the white section. And my grandfather turned to him and said, "That won't be necessary. These seats are fine."
Nice.
And yeah, it My father was very active in the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
awesome.
Oh, how times have changed.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, and they haven't changed, unfortunately.
That's
Right.
also true.
Yep.
As we've been seeing more recently.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. I have a question.
So, what's next?
I have a quick question. You were saying something before we came on air about today is a special day, and you thought it was kind of weird that you were on the show today. What is that day? What is today? What did you say today was? I don't think.
Oh no! Can you, Tim? Can you not hear her?
No, I cannot.
Oh,
Oh, it
Oh.
looks like Chan has to leave and come back.
Alright. Maybe I'll
It's
drop.
like it's the curse of the middle lower screen.
Oh, that's very strange. Hey guys, hold on a second. I'm gonna drop
Can
him
you-
out and then
Can you hear me,
put
Tim?
them
Still?
back in.
I don't think. How about now?
Tim, can you hear them?
Hey, hi, hey, hi.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
No, and now we
It's
can't
weird.
hear him. Oh, he can. All right, then he can. All right.
Okay. Well,
Okay, good.
we'll see how it goes. Chan, why don't you go ahead and ask that question again?
I was just gonna ask him what if he could just tell our listeners what he said today was that he thought was so weird he was on the show today of all days. Because he said something
Yes.
before he came on air.
Because it's the Jim Henson's birthday today, and he would have been 83, which is
Wow.
remarkable to me that man did so much in his career in such a short lifespan. Because I think it's now he's deceased 30 years. So
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
kind of very poignant and at the same time very remarkable because of the re-release of Dark Crystal.
Mhm. Definitely. How do you feel about the re-release?
Oh, why is this not charging? Oh no. Hold on just a second. Okay, I hope that fixed it. Anyway, I think they've done a remarkable job. I mean, it's hard for me to be on the outside of it because I know how much work goes into a program like that. You know, it's just overwhelming. It's an overwhelming task, and the amount of work that they did and the amount of sets that they built, it's really pretty astonishing because they actually created more sets than we did for the original.
And had less time.
Did they have less? Yes, they did, but they also had, I think, probably 3 times the amount of people working on that series than we did.
Awesome.
I have heard that they had 3,000 people working on it in England.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's an enormous crew.
That is a lot of people to pay.
Yeah.
Well, a production like the Dark Crystal itself, the film itself, the original film, even then that had a lot more cast and crew than a normal film would have because of the puppeteering, the nature of the sets.
Well, but not more than, let's say, I'm sorry. For some reason, this is not charging, and that's good. I'm gonna lose you guys. Hold on just a second.
But let's not do that.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, but I wouldn't say that Dark Crystal had a bigger crew than, let's say, Star Wars did at the same time. I mean, yes, we had a lot more creatures, but when you think about it, Star Wars was being developed. You know, a lot of the special effects work was being done in California, and then it was being shot in the Elstree Studios in London.
Mhm.
So they had multiple crews.
Yeah.
Whereas we were all on the same set when they were shooting Yoda, and we were shooting Dark Crystal while they were shooting Star Wars at the same time.
That's awesome.
And I have to say, it was a total shock to me walking by the model shop for the Star Wars and seeing all these guys with great models and using them to build the spaceships. I was like, that's how you do it? Oh gosh, that's so disappointing. You know, it's like, that's the trick. They had built a lot of the airplanes or the forms and shapes of the spaceships, but then they were breaking up all these little, kids models, airplane models and boat models and anything they could get their hands on, and repurposing them by gluing them on the surface of the Star Wars ships. So it's kind of funny that it came full circle and that they ended up being toys and models, which were made up of toys and models.
They don't they call those little bits and add-ons like greeblies or something like that?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to breaking up.
Oh, okay. Don't they refer to those little bits and pieces that they break off and add on to enhance their model like greeblies or greeblies, something like that? Or are you familiar?
I know. I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's fine.
I think you're right though, Josh. It's something along Greeblies or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not really sure myself.
Great question, Josh. Oh man. So who's got the next question? Dom? Dom got any questions tonight?
I like to talk about like one series that I love that you were involved with Fraggle Rock. I remember watching that as a kid and enjoying that world, and just the puppeteering and everything that was dealt with that. It just I didn't at the time I didn't even know that it was any was associated with Jim Henson or anything like that, because I was just a kid watching it. But just that world of Sown, and just the song itself, and just being part of that world and enjoying it, it was just great for me. And my question is that what was your favorite? I know you created a character on that show and designed the character in that show, but just like, can you give me any thoughts of what you enjoyed in that experience and what you did? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And just any experience that you enjoyed with that show and creating that specific character or anything like that.
Well, one of the Franz Fazekas, who built all the mechanics and radio controls at Muppets, had always told me that it was best to keep any mechanism that you put in a puppet's head simple, because if it broke down on set, and everything had to come to a halt, a lot of wasted time and money, and Jim would not be happy. So I always, kind of kept that in the back of my head when I was building things. Like a lot of the mystics, their eyebrow movements were controlled by surgical tubing as a resistance, because springs have a different form of elongation than latex tubing.
Mm-hmm.
And latex tubing has action from start to finish, whereas a spring will have a more mechanical movement. So when it came to building Uncle Traveling Matt, I wanted him to be able to wiggle his mustache.
Hmm.
So I took these two pieces of plastic rod and I attached fur fabric and feathers to it. And then across the front of his nose on the inside was a piece of surgical tubing that attached those two rods. So when you would push your finger forward, or the puppeteer, who was Dave Bowles, would push his finger forward to the front of his nose, it would push his mustache backwards. And if he pushed up or down on one side or the other, it would make it wiggle up and down. Or if he pulled back on the tubing, it would make his mustache fly forward. And it was like the simplest mechanism I ever made for a puppet. And it was the thing that gave him the most life. I think one of the biggest things that Muppets invented in puppetry was for television was adding feathers, because the slightest amount of air movement in the studio makes when you put feathers in your hair, which is what Matt has, is a combination of fur fabric and feathers. It adds life and movement that you wouldn't normally get if it was just fur fabric. So, as I have designed and built, many puppets over the course of the last 35 years, I'm always trying to go to the simplest thing I can. Like recently with the Boglins, everybody's been asking me to make the Boglins have an eye mechanism. And it's difficult because printing, I redesigned the mechanism for the Boglins, but the printing was very difficult. So I created a Cyclops, and it's basically a sphere that rolls inside of a sphere.
Nice.
And you just move it with your middle finger. And it adds a lot of life to it and a lot of expression, but it's a direct movement. You're not relying on a cable or a spring or even a piece of latex. It's just the movement of your finger up and down on the back of his eyeball. So.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely wanted to ask you about some of the mechanics inside, but we do have a question from the chat, Dave, if you want to put that back up.
Yeah.
So our friend Knight of Ren, he asks, how did you get into puppeteering? Did Jim Henson take you under his wing, or did you work your way up through different jobs?
Well, I had always done puppets as a kid. I would do puppet shows for the kids in my neighborhood to make money. And when I started going to Pratt Institute, Kermit Love, who designed Big Bird and Snuffleupagus, was teaching a course on puppetry. And I wanted to get into his class, but preference was given to seniors and people who were in the theater school. So I wasn't able to get into Kermit's class until the last semester of my senior year. And I was kind of determined to outdo everybody who was in the class. And I had a distinct advantage in that I knew how to sew. And so on the weekends, a lot of times on the weekends, I was going home and, using my mother's sewing machine. So one of the things I designed was a dragon, and my my left hand was in his head, and my head itself was the hump in the dragon's back, and my other hand was his tail.
That's cool.
So it moved across my body, and it could move forward and backward or sideways. And
That's
the
awesome.
the first puppet I created for Kermit's class was a crab, and I used my fingers to become the legs of the crab, and my thumbs, I put ping pong balls on my thumbs, and they were his eyeballs. So he had 8 legs and 2 eyeballs that moved, and a hard shell on the top and on the bottom. And Kermit said to me, it's like, he said, I really like what you've done here because you're using your hands in a different way than doing
Yeah, you're
your
not
typical closing mouth of a hand puppet, that you're using your hands in a completely different way than other people are approaching it. And that's actually where Sectors came out of, was later on when I was working for Kermit. Well, to complete the story, when I finished his class, he asked me what I was going to do after I graduated, and I said I was looking for a teaching job, but at that time there wasn't a lot of teaching jobs in and around New York City. So he asked me if I would come and work for him, and I said yes. So there's Dargon, and you put the glove on your hand, and then your fingers became his legs, and you could turn on the switch to make him fly around the room. And
That's awesome.
that was born out of a fly hand puppet that I created.
Yeah.
Because I
locks
didn't
up.
like doing masks at Halloween parties, and Muppets would have some very elaborate Halloween parties. Yeah.
JD, did you have that, or did you pick that up like
I
recently?
have some.
Oh, I've had this, man.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I've had a lot of this stuff forever.
Well, I love the idea that a toy line was basically inspired by and grew out of your first puppet that you created for that class. That's not for the class, but the crab puppet with the eyeballs. That's pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little bit, so it's a little hard for me to know what you're asking. But
I was just commenting how I think it's great how a toy line was born, inspired from your crab puppet creation.
yeah, yes. Well, at the time, I had done sculpting work for Hasbro while I was still working for Muppets on the Dark Crystal toy line. Those figures were never released, but the fly had been created, and probably 3 years before that, for a Halloween party. And I had gotten in contact with Seven Towns, who was a toy agent and was most famous for representing Rubik's Cube. It's very difficult to get to show things in the toy industry because the toy companies are very paranoid about intellectual properties, and whether the person that concept is the originator of it or has taken it from somebody else. So they actually would not see me. Hasbro was the only toy company that would see me and would look at my new concepts because they had worked with me when I was sculpting the Dark Crystal figures. But like Mattel wouldn't see me. Like every major toy company that I tried to contact to show work would not see me. So I was at Toy Fair trade magazine and saw that Seven Towns was representing toy inventors, and I called them and they said, well, we don't really see people from the outside. And I was like, well, how the heck do you get into this business if nobody will let you, show them
Yeah.
anything?
Right.
And and they said, well, because there's, paranoia amongst the toy companies. And I said, well, I've been working at Muppets for the last, 6 years, and I have a lot of really good toy ideas. And they said, oh, you worked at Muppets? Oh, well, then you should definitely come in. So that got me in the door. And then I was working with Maureen Trotto at that time, doing TV commercials and doing a lot of props and special effects stuff. And the agent at Seven Towns, we would go in like, once a month or something and show him different concepts. And that was Larry Mass. He would say, no, that's been done before, or no, that's too bizarre. It's not going to sell. It's like whatever I was coming up with as an idea or that Maureen was pitching, he wasn't too excited about. And then I said, well, okay, well, this is something that I did a few years ago for a Halloween party. I think it would make a great kid's toy. And that's when I took the fly out of the bag and he went, oh, that's brilliant. He said, we could put an action figure on the back of that thing and it would be amazing because a kid could fly it around the room. And I was so stunned because to me, I thought it was, I don't know, just such a simple concept. It wasn't anything all that fancy, but, then we started playing around with it and Maureen and I made a bunch of prototypes and Seven Towns took it to Toy Fair that year and showed it to Coleco, and Coleco just flipped out over it. They loved it. So they made an offer right then and there to buy it, which never happens anymore. Like the toy company, it's like right now, sometimes you have stuff at toy companies that go for 3 to 6 months before they make a decision. It's enough to drive you nuts.
Wow.
But,
Wow.
yeah, so Sectors became the first toy property that we sold, and a few years after, well, I think a year after that, or it probably wasn't even a year after that, we showed Coleco Boglins, and they liked it, and they wanted to put it into the Sectors line as like this evil nemesis monster. And we went back up to see it, what they had done, and the prototype was just so awful. I was like, no, this is not the concept at all. It was like they had made like this alligator head on top of like a dryer hose, and I was like, what is that? Like it made no sense to me at all. And later on, well, what happened was Coleco went bust because they lost so much money on Atom Computer. So the rights to Boglins was returned to us, and then we showed it to Mattel, I think the next Toy Fair, and Mattel bought it right away. It was, they said, oh my gosh, this has been staring at us in the face in all these movies, and we never thought about doing it.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about
and Boglins, Sorry.
about making puppets as toys? Like, do you feel that that's a really good way to go for kids?
Well, I think it's the best thing because it's open-ended imagination, and the kids get to create their own storyline. It's like I do some workshops with teachers every once in a while, And I said, a lot of the art teachers in public schools are being pressured to kind of prove that the arts are valuable, so that the kids have to write about their work and they have to, explain why they created it. And, it's like in some ways, I think that's really, it's good, but it's also a hindrance, because a lot of people who are artistically creative are not always the best at talking about what they do or how they do it or why they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I was in school, the arts were an escape from all the stuff that I hated about school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
To now make kids draw, or to write about, what their painting is saying is kind of, I think, difficult. And I was saying to the teachers that the great thing about building puppets with kids is that they can make up a story, they can make up sets, they can create sets, they can create the puppet, they can imagine the character, write a script for that character, and then they can perform. So you're not just dealing with one form of art, you're dealing with a multiple amount of art forms, and you can justify it to, the principal and the board of ed, as being a more valid arts program, because the kids, are active in a lot of different ways. Because it's like, if you're building a set, you're touching on architecture and mathematics and design, and then you're touching on literature, and if you have to write the script and imagine it, and then you're actively engaged by creating the character and building it. So and I think that's why puppets make exceptionally good toys.
Speaking of making good toys, we had a question in the chat as well. He from Jeremy. He asked, "What is your favorite design that never got picked up for production?"
I can't tell you that.
Oh,
That question, that a lot of the things, I have to say, a lot of the things that I did 30 years ago that I wanted to be toy products were too ahead of the capability of toy production at that time. So, because we were doing so much work with radio controls, there were a lot of radio controlled creatures that I wanted to make that didn't get made. But now
Because
those
that's a
things are
big part of
becoming
puppeteering, right?
Sorry?
Is that a big part of that's a big part of puppeteering, right? The radio controlled stuff.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, because when the New York crew for Dark Crystal was going to London to work on Dark Crystal, the English unions didn't want to let us in. They said, "Well, we have puppet people here and do the movie here. You can just hire the puppet builders we have here." And Jim said, "No, you don't understand. These people have been been working on this for over a year and a half already. And they've developed techniques that don't exist in the puppetry world." And he said, "There's a core group that I have to bring, because if I was go to England now and start production with a whole new crew, it would take me another year and a half just for them to get up to speed." So they changed our title to three-dimensional animatronic designers. So we weren't puppet builders, we were three-dimensional animatronic designers. And the word animatronic came from Disney for the radio controlled presidents, that they had done, and for the characters that they had done in Disneyland and Disney World, the Pirates of the Caribbean, all of these things, which were animatronics. So it was the idea of having computer controlled animatons, and Muppets picked up on that, but the limitation of trying to get character to be expressive using your face as a driver is your face your face and your facial muscles are very limited in their movement, whereas your hand is a lot more expressive in what it can do. And when we started working on Dark Crystal, they brought Dick Smith in, who was a makeup artist who did Exorcist and Raging Bull and a lot of really incredible movies. And Dick showed us how to use foam latex. And at the same time, he was like amazed. He said, wow, like what the expressions that you guys can get with your hands, so much greater than what I can do with somebody's face. And he said, you've got me, he was teaching us and we were teaching him, at the same time. So, the whole work on Dark Crystal was innovative in a lot of ways that people don't realize, because so many things have come after it that have used those techniques in the same way or many other different ways.
Now,
Did I get off track? Probably.
No, that's
Sorry.
okay. I wanted to ask you about some of the techniques in the mechanics in the puppet. So, for instance, you mentioned using the hose to make Matt's mustache wiggle, right? And after watching the prequels to the Dark Crystal, I actually watched the Dark Crystal before that as well. I think in the prequel that just came out, they did some computer graphics and stuff like that to enhance some of the facial expressions. But I was kind of curious, when you use your hand, like you can ball it up as a fist and things, and like you can, like Kermit the Frog, if you think about it, right? You can like make his face scrunch up and things. But when I look
Yes.
but when I look at, like, say the puppet that you made, the Uncle Traveling Matt, which I can't find the picture
Yeah.
of here at the moment. Now, I mean, to me, it looks like, his head is bigger, so you don't really have that kind of articulation in your hand to use. But I was kind of curious about, like, making the eyebrows move and things like that. Are there like strings and stuff in there that go on your fingers so that you can like make the eyebrows move while you're making them talk and things
Well,
like that?
Bert's, for example, Bert's eyebrows move just by a very simple system of having rods. Well, there's a piece of metal that goes across his brow, and it's just fabric in the center. So when you pull down on the lever inside his head, it just forces his brows up and down. So they're spring loaded, and then you're just press down on it. It forces his eyebrows to go down, and it's a very simple mechanism. The Gelflings are probably and the Skeksis are probably the most intricate and advanced, with a combination of both spring-loaded and radio control. In the original Dark Crystal series, radio controls were too large and bulky to use in small characters. They were used in the Gelflings, but the other problem is on set is radio interference. So, like, for instance, Jaden Gutnick and I and Foz built all the singing Fraggles in the background of Fraggle Rock that you see in the opening sequence. But unfortunately, we built them in New York, and the radio frequency that they were on was too close to the fire engines in Toronto, which is where the series was shot. It was everything was built in New York, but the series itself was shot in Toronto, and there was a fire station like 3 doors up from the studio, and every time the firemen would leave or go out of the building, it would cause the Fraggles to just like chatter. Their heads would move erratically, and their mouths would go all crazy, in different directions. Their heads would go off at all different angles. And Jim said, this is maddening. It's like they would get a shot, and then the next shot they couldn't get. And he said, forget it. Just go and hire a bunch of puppeteers. This is not going to work. And the Doozers were on a different frequency. They never had any problem with them. And some of the other puppets were on a different frequency, so they didn't have problems. So it was just those background Fraggles that were too close. And when you're running that many different radio control units on a set, each series of puppets needs to be on a different frequency to function properly.
Wow.
So it can be a good thing, and it can be a hindrance.
I was just curious, were you a puppeteer yourself, or did you mainly just design and build the puppets?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
I'm sorry. I was curious if you were a puppeteer yourself, or did you mainly just build them?
No, my main thing was designing and building, but for Dark Crystal, like, I did a lot of cable control work on the Mystics, and I was underneath the main puppeteer, controlling their eye blink, their eye movement, their eyebrow movement. Some of them also had bellows in their throat, to make it look like they were breathing. So I had little squeeze bulbs that I had to, open and close. That was mostly in the Dying Master. And then on the Skeksis, the Ornamentalist, Brian Meal and I both worked on the Dying Master together, and I think it's Urza who was like Jen's master after that. We puppeteered that together, so we kind of got into a sync of knowing how to react to each other, or me reacting to Brian's movements, and we did the Ornamentalist Skeksis together, and I controlled his opposing hand, and some of his eye movements and brow movements. So, and almost all of those on the Skeksis were cables. Yeah, that's just like, if you see some of the behind the scenes shots, you'll see, like, for each Skeksis, you'll see like 5 people controlling different cable control mechanisms.
What's rehearsal like? Like, how much practice does that take to have like 5 people do one character all at the same time? That's wild stuff to think about.
Like, it's the main movement in the puppet is the opening and closing in the mouth and the lip sync. So the puppeteer is usually controlling with his right hand the mouth movement, if he's right-handed, and the left hand of the puppet. So he still maintains that immediate reaction between his left hand and his right hand. Then somebody else will do the opposing puppet's hand, and it's usually more reactive to how the puppet is moving. And you just get you get to the point where you've done it so much that it just becomes natural. It's not. I really don't remember us rehearsing a whole hell of a lot,
Wow.
you know. But
That's
you
incredible.
also have to remember that we were working with the greatest puppeteers on the planet. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's like, and we've been watching them for years. So we knew kind of what was expected of us and how to do it. Everybody was puppeteering a pod person in those big group party scenes. And Jim did a puppeteering class with us when we were in England for a week, talking about how to lip sync and what was the most effective way to learn how to lip sync. So, doesn't hurt when you have the best.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions for you. We have what was your least favorite project to work on? That's from Jason.
My favorite project to work on. Working at any of the toy companies where I had an art director.
Ah,
Uh-huh.
corporate end of it.
I have to say, Michael Frith at Muppets was a great art director because he appreciated the fact that we were taking his very simple little drawings and turning them into 3 dimensions. I have worked at toy companies where art directors have no concept of 3 dimension. They only understand 2 dimensions. And I remember designing some puppets and they said, "Well, can you sketch this out?" And I said, "No, it's not a 2-dimensional object. It's a 3-dimensional object. I will just make it."
Mhm.
And they said to me, "Well, if you make it and we don't like it, then what are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, then I'll just make another one. It doesn't take me long to do. It's like to make simple puppets. It's rather easy. And the Muppet way is that you make a simple head, and then you can attach a mustache or a different size nose or a different size eyes, and it completely changes the character. And people don't always understand that. Like they think, "Oh my God, you have to sew each one over and over and over again." No, it's like Mr. Potato Head in a way. So
I don't think a lot of people understand the construction of a puppet that is, like a Muppet puppet. I don't think that a lot of people have ever seen the full construction of something like that in order to comprehend it.
Is there a
Well,
difference?
I mean, there is actually an old, I think it's actually an old movie or video that Jim did with Don Saline and Frank Oz, where they actually showed the whole process of how they used to create what we used to call at Muppets they were called whatnot puppets. So you had a whole, like you could have on set 20 different heads of different shapes, and then you just opened a drawer and pulled out 10 different eye shapes and played around with them, and then maybe you snipped out a mustache or you added a wig or like a bunch of feathers to the top of their head, and you played around with it. So it was like a very interactive thing of not I mean, I was in what they called what we ended up calling Muppet University, because each season you had to make new puppets. And Jim came to us in the New York shop, and he said, when we were working on Dark Crystal, and he said, "Look, I need some new puppets for Muppet Show. I just want you guys to spend the next 3 weeks building new puppets for Muppet Show."
Wow.
And so that's all we did, and nobody ever drew anything.
Mhm.
It's like nobody's had sketched out anything and handed us a drawing and say, here, make it look like this.
Yeah.
We just went at it, and we are carving foam and sewing and doing all kinds of stuff. And
That's fascinating.
and that was the brilliance of Jim, is that he recognized that people had different approaches of doing things. It's like he gave you the time to experiment and play. He totally understood that, and we had just immense freedom.
And that's kind of a dream job, though, to be able to play at work. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That you spent that, your life doing that kind of thing is absolutely incredible. I'm actually
Yeah,
kind of jealous.
I'm kind of jealous.
You have to remember that me going to work for Kermit Love at Kermit's shop, Kermit did a lot of the Sesame Street characters because the Muppet Workshop didn't have the time. So we did Sesame Street characters for Kuwait and Germany and Mexico. And we also did puppets for TV commercials that Kermit got contracted to do. So I went, from being in college and having summer jobs, working in the Army Navy store, to working in Kermit's workshop. And then after a year, he said, Jim is starting up this new project at Muppets, and I want you to go up and interview with him. So
That's fantastic.
Working at Henson was really, and working for Muppets was my first job. So I didn't really have anything in the creative industry to compare it to. And I have to say, it wasn't until I went to Dragon Con, I guess it was 2 years ago, and I was on a panel with Charlie Chiodo, who I had worked on the Sectors movie with, which was never released. And Charlie has done a lot of stuff like Killer Clowns and Critters and all kinds of stuff.
Nice. Wow.
And
Yeah.
he was sitting on one side of me, and Nick Maley, who worked on Yoda and had done a lot of special effects in England. And at one point, and these two are bantering back and forth, and I'm sitting in the middle of them. And then Charlie Chiodo says, and then these bastards came out with Dark Crystal. And I looked at him like, well, what did I do? And he said, after Dark Crystal came out, every studio head would say to us, I want you to make this look just like the creatures in Dark Crystal. And he said, we would turn to the executives and say, look, you do realize that Jim Henson worked on that movie for 2.5 years before they put the film out, and that he has a dedicated workshop. That's what the only thing those people do is build these incredible creatures. He said, you can't expect me to make that in 3 months.
Right.
You want to start in 3 months and you want me to make something that, he said, it's not going to happen. I'll give you the best I can. And he said, he turned to me and said, you guys just drove us nuts. He's like, everybody in the industry after that was, like going, oh my God, how the hell do we keep up with this? How do we keep up with this? But I never knew that because, I was only centered in my own little Muppet world,
Right.
Well, I can definitely agree with her and say that, makes me a little kind of jealous that you get to live a life like that. And,
Yeah. Definitely.
always being
it makes me
surrounded by
jealous,
art.
too.
Well, I mean, growing up around art and being an artist and
Yeah.
sculpting and all that kind of stuff, it was always a dream of mine to, kind of be involved in toys or, maybe even puppetry at some point. I don't know, but it never went that way. Those roads didn't open up.
No, I mean, Kermit was my first crush, so I do understand.
This is true.
Wanting
You should have
to-
said this.
Mess with. I always wanted to be involved in that kind of a life, playing with the puppets and making them, building them, constructing them. I always thought it was an amazing process. So
Chan,
But
you're
nothing
still
stopped
attracted to frogs
Yeah.
too.
Hey.
No, it's true. It's like the what I'm always trying to do in my own studio is replicate what I was taught and how I learned.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What I was doing at Muppets, and giving myself now that I'm not working full time for anybody, giving myself the time to play and explore. And even today, I was fooling around with a new design for an eye mechanism, and I was going, it literally took the tubing that's used to set a screen inside, the frame. There's this little just piece of rubber that goes around a screen when you set it into the frame.
Hmm.
And it just had the right resistance to make this eye move. And I was going, oh, this is really easy and simple and fun.
See, the
Mhm.
mechanics of it are really intriguing to me too, because it seems like you just sort of take some things that you have around and start trying to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it literally just comes to me in the middle of the night. I'll wake up and I will get these ideas about how to solve a problem that's been driving me nuts for 3 years. And I go, like, why didn't you come up with this a long time ago? Like,
Yeah.
why did it take so long? But you were asking me about doing puppets and having that it is indeed a lot of luck and being in the right time in the right place. But there's nothing stopping you from doing it now. You know,
Mm.
when this show ends, you can go over and pick up a bunch of, fabric and feathers and start playing around with it. There is no limitation. There is no right or wrong. There are no rules that have to be followed. I have to say, one of the things I loved about seeing Mystery Science Theater was that the puppets are all robots. They're all hard plastic,
Mhm.
and they look nothing like Muppets. And they're wonderful. They're really wonderful because they're crazy in their own way.
Mhm.
When I went to Dragon Con, the puppetry slam that they did one night, there was not a single puppet in the show. It was all these little short skits. There was not a single puppet that looked like a Muppet. And it made me so happy because, it's not like Muppets is the be all and end all of
Right.
puppetry. There's
Right.
a lot of incredible stuff being done in Europe and elsewhere in the world, everywhere in the world, um, and sometimes it's hard for me to break out of that concept,
Well,
That's a
making
good. I was gonna ask him something, Brian. You don't mind?
go right ahead.
You just mentioned the break out of that, so I wanted to kind of ask you. Aside from the puppetry and the movie stuff, like we're all toy collectors. That's primarily what we talk about. I was wondering if you collect anything or you're into any specific new or old toy lines.
Oh, do you want to see what I collect?
Sure.
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 Oh,
It's very eclectic, but I'll try. Hold on a second.
Gary would
Okay.
appreciate this.
Oh, these are
He's a
mechanical
brownie.
toys that are made out of wood that I bought in England.
What
Oh,
happened?
no.
We just
We
lost
lost
him.
him.
Dang it.
He's there. He's there. He's there.
And
Oh no! I think because he moved.
these are
Oh.
Yeah, we're
wooden figures, and that's
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
Jesse Hernandez, who does vinyl. His pieces, and let's see, down here, this one who I have to fit because sucked her head off. This another
Aw.
vinyl artist toy work. This is from Peru, and this is another thing I have to unfortunately fix. So this is Podolesky's photo. He needs to be back together, and that's a cause vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
This
cool.
is Dr. A, who does figure and.
Oh, that's very cool.
Let's see.
You know what, Tim? You were at 5
Delta
points,
Dog.
weren't you?
And
Hey, Tim.
this
Are you
is-
there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
can you
can
hear us though?
So I quote a lot of,
He can't hear anything.
this is some.
You're breaking up, Tim.
Yeah, upgrade that
I'm-
Wi-Fi.
All right.
Oh, I
Oh
see.
yeah, I see him.
Okay.
Give it just 1 second.
Did I lose
There he
you?
goes.
There we go.
Sorry.
It's all right. You broke up a bit.
Did I lose
Tim,
you completely?
Tim, did you get you get some of that stuff at 5 points?
I have gotten it at DesignerCon in California
Mm-hmm.
and at the London Toy Show, ToyCon in London, and then I have a whole collection of puppets and marionettes that I've gotten from all over the world. And 5 points, yes, 5 points is the biggest designer toy showcase on the East Coast.
We
that's
were there.
helpful.
We were there this summer. We just probably missed you.
Sorry.
So we were there this summer. We probably missed you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting show for sure. And
Yeah.
Tim, as Dave mentioned, we are part of a toy collector community, and so
Right.
we had some questions in the chat. Some people were asking about the Boglins, and they were like, "Are they making a comeback?" But I do believe you sell them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been designing them, sculpting, molding them, and making them by hand for the last almost 3 years now.
Oh wow!
And so I at the same time I've been pitching them to different toy companies to relaunch them, but it's like I have one company right now looking at it, whether it's going to go through or not. I have no idea. But in the meantime, I just decided that I'm going to continue having fun with developing new characters. I'm playing with them. And a lot of it is going back and looking at drawings I did 30 years ago and just going, oh, this was never done. I should do this. And, it's like 30 years ago, I did a whole series of mini Boglins that were cannibals. So in one way or the other, but since I was playing around with the new eye mechanism today, I've got a bunch of ideas, and I also looking into adding some electronic parts to Boglins to make them more animated. And I'm meeting with a company on Saturday to talk to them about that. So
Oh, nice.
So I think.
it's like,
Go ahead.
now that I'm back working on my own, and as I said, I have no art director but me, and I have nobody to tell me no.
Mhm.
So it's like, and I have no toy executives to say no, you can't do that. totally up to me what I do, and how I do it, and, what I get to do. So
I think it's great that the license ended
best
up
part.
coming back to you too.
Now, if somebody wanted to purchase one of these, where could they do that?
You can buy Boglins on my website, which is www.totims.com, which is spelled like my name. It's TOTIMS rather than EMS. And you can see, stuff in action on Instagram. I have a lot of video shorts posted on there of all the different things I've been working on.
I love seeing you peel.
And on Instagram and on Facebook, it's Tim Clark Toys, and Clark has an E at the end. So
Awesome.
that's the main place I post and promote the things that I'm working on and what I'm doing.
I did have a question. The upcoming, or the Sectors line that just went through Kickstarter, and I think the figures are available for pre-order for anybody that wasn't in early on the Kickstarter. If that line is successful, do you plan on doing any of the hand puppets for it?
Yeah, Zika Toys brought out the 4-inch scale Sectors, and they are shipping in November, and you can pre-order them now at zikatoys.com, and we're hoping to go into the next phase of because the Kickstarter was very successful. It just took a long time to find a factory in China that was competent and was able to produce the quality that we were looking for.
Yes.
So it took a lot longer than any of us had expected, but all the bugs are worked out. I think, you guys saw the figures at RetroCon, and
Oh yeah.
so we're looking forward to those coming out, and hopefully doing the insects and everything else down the line. And also we're looking to launch a comic book in November at DesignerCon. I'm hoping that we can get everything together to kickstart the new comic book series, which takes the storyline of the Sectors into the future.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah. So Tim, I'm kind of curious. So, like, what's the process for, or how did that all come about? Getting that Kickstarter together for this brand. Did you go out and promote it, or did someone approach you? Like, how did that all work?
No, Zika Toys approached us about doing it, and so they have a license to produce them, and I really like so far what they've done. I mean, the first series that they were working on, when they got the samples back from the factory, he said to me, "Tim, I don't even want to show them to you because they're so bad." And I said, "Well, it's all right. I will take that into consideration, but I'd still just like to see where you're going, so at least I know you're doing something."
Mhm.
But now the figures are really beautiful. I'm looking forward to doing some other things with it too. So, and the comic book has a whole bunch of new characters. Maureen and I, back in the 80s, really wanted to push to have more female characters in the line. And of course, the toy companies back then
Right.
were very resistant. They said, "No, these are just boy toys. They're just boy toys. They're just boy toys." It's like, I'll never forget it. Like, some of the toy executives can be, like, they're just so fixated that you cannot believe some of the things they tell you. And at one point, when Maureen was working on the script for the Sectors movie, and one of the guys who worked there, one of the executives, said to us, No, but in this scene, we only have 2 characters. And we need to see every character in the line in every scene. And Maury just looked at him and she said, I mean, you want to have a movie where Dargon and Spydrax are having a battle. And as they move through the set, the entire line of characters is going to be following them with each tactical move they make. And then he kind of realized how ridiculous.
That's
But,
how you
you
sell.
know, it's like-
That's how you sell toys.
Fixated on selling toys. They don't care how bad or good the storyline is, as long as
Right.
you see all those toys. You know?
Just making a big commercial.
So did you have like input on the sculpts? Because I know you had mentioned you did the sculpts for the Dark Crystal toys that were not released, back in the 80s. But like, what was your creative input on this Kickstarter? Did you have any roles there?
You're breaking up. And I don't know.
Oh,
what you're
no.
asking me.
I was kind of curious what the extent of creative contribution did you have to the sculpts of the characters in the Kickstarter, to the figures, I mean, pardon me.
Sorry.
You can't hear me.
Sorry, I'm
Damn.
not getting any of it. I
So
don't know if it's
he's
your
asking,
connection or your microphone you're using or what.
you hear me okay? Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, a bit, but
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. The hamster's getting tired in the wheel.
it might be that my phone.
Uh,
Oh, that stinks.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Not
Tim, can you
getting
hear
it.
me or no? Nothing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
bounce
We're losing
you're all breaking up.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Oh no.
And then he's gone.
his connection.
Oh, he's back.
His connection.
You're there. There
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear us now?
No,
How about now?
sorry.
Nothing? Oh,
Tim, the best thing to do is bounce out and then just try to come back right in. So like leave the stream, but then come back in.
If he can hear
Hear
you.
me. Right.
yeah. Oh,
Oh, man. No more questions.
Can
Does
he see
anybody-
the chat?
Let's see.
no, he can't
Look at
see
it.
it.
Oh,
Oh,
not that. Yeah, that.
this one.
Yeah.
He has to hit it if he knows where to hit it. He's not going to see it. It's going to prompt him. He has to hit the chat.
Yeah, we can't kick him out either.
Mm.
Mm-mm.
Uh-oh. Well, he made it through most of the show, so that's good.
That's pretty good.
Well,
That sucks.
All right. Well, we'll take a quick
Oh,
break
well.
and remind everybody of the shows we got
Yeah.
going on the.
Now the video plays.
Can you hear us now? Did it fix it?
We can't even hear him.
he's lagging out.
Nope. Oh.
I'm about to grab a sock and put it in my hand and just go like this.
Oh, we should all had puppets. That'd be funny.
That would be
Oh,
great.
JD wants to be a puppeteer. I'm like, dude, let's just do the show and puppets. Come on, why not?
We could.
Is the sock sticky, Dave?
Yours
Uh-huh.
probably is.
Jeez.
I stopped doing that when I was 13. I don't know about you.
Well,
I mean, we could write him a message and hold it up on the screen. That might be the only way.
Does anybody have paper?
I do.
All right.
Chan's got her clipboard.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Here's
All right.
Dave's
Dave's-
writing. What are you telling him, Dave? Log out, log back in.
I hope he has good penmanship.
I know,
Let's see. Where is it?
right?
Dude, that bill is $384. What the fuck did you buy?
So, Tim, can you see that? Can you try leaving and come back?
You're telling the guy to bounce.
You're telling him
Come
about.
back.
Yeah.
Bounce out. He's gonna be bouncing right now. He's gonna be
Using
like
this.
jumping up and down.
Tim, leave.
Go.
I don't think he can see.
Yeah.
JD, I don't know, message him or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks
Is
like
Is he
he's,
frozen? Is he frozen?
he might have lagged out.
Yes, I think he's frozen.
It's gone.
Well, I
Somebody
think,
must.
I think it was pretty cool. The dude has a lot of history.
Yeah,
That's-
I was just getting wrapped up in his stories, man. Like,
Me too.
I could see that. I wish we could add to that, but we're not that cool, I guess. You know what I mean?
No.
I don't think it has anything to do with being cool or not.
I mean, come on, think about it. They say if you do, what is it? What's the saying? If you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. Like
Yeah.
that dude,
Yeah.
seems like he's how old? Who knows? You know what I mean? Like Tim, sorry if you can hear me, but dude's still pushing to do more. You know what I mean? Like at that point, like I'd probably just be lazy and be like, you know what, I'm gonna chill and just get my residuals and fucking do nothing the rest of my life and live in Florida. Sorry
Well,
to be Floridian, but
I really like what he said earlier, like before he even jumped on the show, where he said about working as hard for himself as he has for other people. And that right there is the key to making money for yourself. That's it.
he also said he found it more fulfilling as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you should have saw him at the show, man. Whenever a little kid would walk by his table, he just had his hand in that boglin, man.
He's chasing him around.
Dude,
Oh,
he's
That's
just,
what-
he's
I'm
young
not-
at heart, man.
I'm asking for one of those for Christmas. That's what I want right there.
so at least while he was on here, we were able to get him to plug where you guys can find him and go buy your own boglin.
Yeah, true.
And he also sells other things on there too.
Yeah,
He always had that thing on his hand, you know what I mean, when we took pictures with him.
Well, what's funny is like I had mentioned that dude was gonna be on the show to like a few people at work, and they all remembered it. And like, oh, I had one of those. Like I didn't have one, but I remember them.
I had one.
So when you think about it, like these things were almost in every household,
Oh yeah.
one or another. You know what I mean?
Boglins were like
Uh,
very popular.
I didn't have one, but my little brother did because he was
Mhm.
like 9 or 10 when they came out.
He said his battery is dying, even though he has it plugged in.
You know,
Yeah.
the funny thing, what I loved about them too is like just the touch of them, how like they were like just the texture of the boglins was always like something fascinating to me. Where it was really made the figure or the puppet actually feel real.
Did it? What's funny? Somebody I put up like in the Facebook group about the Boglins, and I think it was Daryl who came back and he was like, "Yeah, it was my first fleshlight." That was my first.
Oh no!
No,
Oh,
I feel
no.
like I think when you were talking right now, Dom, you're like, "Yeah, the texture."
no, yeah, like, it's just
Felt so
just like
real.
nothing else.
of course, Dave, you would take it there. You fucking.
I mean, why not? We're fucking all adults, right? Like, come on.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not a
yeah,
G-rated
yeah.
show. It's never been.
Maybe get
But no, it made the puppet more realistic to me in regards to
another time or something.
how the goblin felt and the texture of it.
Right.
But which was pretty cool because you would assume that same texture on like a gremlin or like like one of those type of characters and stuff like that.
There was something I wanted to say, but I didn't want to interrupt you when he was talking. So he had mentioned how, like you're behind the puppet or like, you could express yourself differently. Right. I was watching that video on like the making of the Dark Crystal, and it was
Mhm.
interesting to see the acting that really goes into the puppetry. Like the
Oh, yeah.
people that are doing it are in in character. Like they're
Exactly.
really acting just like them. It's
And
amazing.
he even said it. There's a school, like there's a whole school in regards to puppeteering and how to bring a puppet to life and the movements that you would do that you wouldn't think of to kind of bring the character
Is
to
that where,
life.
is that where our wives went? To that
Oh,
school?
what?
Is that how they fucking-
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's where they went for
Oh
their
man,
education.
I didn't go to that school. I guess that's I'm
You
missing
should
out.
look. Just stick your finger behind
Yeah.
JT.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's none of that going on there, buddy. No,
Mm-hmm.
no.
But it's amazing. It's an art to which they would, every puppeteer would have to learn itself and just make and bring those characters to life in the movements that they make in their hands and everything like that. That always astounded me when watching, as I grew up and just seeing Sesame Street and and all Kermit and how all the expressions that they can possibly make to make him look real, like and actually like not just take it from. This is a hand in a sock, and he's just making the movements. He actually brings it to life.
Even like in today's puppetry, like how they did the Dark Crystal prequel.
Age of
A lot of it they couldn't. What is it called? Age of Resistance.
Mhm.
They couldn't do what they like all CG because it wouldn't come across the same way, the way it comes across with the puppetry.
right.
Like there's
And
just something about it that's really more lifelike than even like CG would be.
and,
Oh,
and I,
absolutely.
yeah. It's amazing too. Like I was watching that special as well, and they were saying how you got the people like with their hand with the puppet's ass, but then you also have people using radio controls for the facial features at the same time, like in the same scene. It's like
Mhm.
you have all those people acting out that character at once. That's wild stuff.
You got
Yeah.
four other people following you, following the puppeteer, and
Yep.
they're controlling one person per arm or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like ridiculous.
It's a synchronized dance, basically.
Yeah. And how they synchronize the facial expression. Someone else is controlling that with a machine, while someone else is moving the mouth. I just think that's wild. And
Right.
did you see when they were walking around they were all looking down at their feet because they had monitors attached to
Mhm.
them because
Yeah.
they were watching themselves act in real time.
So they
Yeah.
could see what the director saw.
Yeah, that was it's
Yeah, doing that
And-
with like 70 pounds on your shoulder,
Right.
and it's probably like fucking 110 degrees in there. Imagine trying to
For countless hours a day too.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? For whatever a 10-hour, 14-hour shoot.
Dom would be a good puppeteer. He used to play football.
Dom can't stand up. He needs a chair for everywhere.
They make wheels.
Yeah, I'll stand up.
But,
I'll stand up.
Big wheels.
These guys.
they piggyback off of what Brian said though about
What was that like? The 5 seconds of making fun of Dom?
Yeah.
Duh.
Oh, no.
But to piggyback what Brian was saying though, like when they're controlling the facial movements with the puppeteers' hand movements, they also have to take into account the tone of voice to capture that emotion that the puppeteer is doing because they're doing the original voice acting.
Right.
Mhm.
That was some tremendous stuff too. I mean, it's a very complex process, and I find it fascinating.
I think I can see them like company. Granted, it's a beautiful art, and it actually does bring out more of the realistic because you can't sometimes with CGI you can't get that real look in regards to cloth and just what the puppet can provide you.
Right.
But
There's no
like it,
weight to it.
but like I can see it being like a hard push to become. What does he say? I just missed that. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But like I can just see like like people straying away from that type of art because it's like it's so complex and all, like just the magnitude of what they need to do just to pull off that one scene is so complex. So they'll resort to CGI just to keep get away from that.
Well,
But
nobody wants to be an architect. They just want
Yeah.
the building built. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I don't want it. Like I wish more of that is in the mainstream in regards to trying to provide that type of puppeteering and giving that realistic look rather than just resorting to CGI and just like saying, this is the way we're going to do it, because it's obviously going to get cheaper with CGI. It's just the puppeteering it's an art that shouldn't be lost.
Well, it's just like he mentioned before when he's talking Star Wars, right? Like Jabba the Hutt and Yoda to come to mind for me, because like the CGI versions of them aren't that good at all. Like
No.
no matter how well you do it. But the puppets, now that you're talking another story here, especially with Jabba.
Absolutely.
You had like 3 or 4 guys manning that thing or inside of it.
Mhm.
Freaking awesome.
And the CGI versions just they've gotten a little better, but they're really still crappy if you look at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they don't hold up over time. Look at the Jabba from the first special edition.
Oh yeah, like when Han is like stepping on him or something like
Yeah,
that.
looks like a bag of ass.
Retarded.
Yeah, I can't. I don't like it. I just think that the quality is different when it comes to the actual creation too. Like CGI is fun and everything for certain things, but all in all, I think it should be more of a combination of things in the long run, because I feel
agree.
like if you throw the CGI in there and you do the puppeteering stuff, you're going to come up with something even grander than they would be individually.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with you, Chen, because I think if you can provide the puppeteering regarding the body and the face and the head, and then just use the CGI for the expression, I think you'll have a winning mix there to give off the realization of the feel of the character, the body of the character, but then be able to do the facial expressions that might be difficult to do with puppeteering.
Well, that's
And-
how they pulled off the new Dark Crystal stuff. Is they like the tongues of the Skeksis and some of the eye movements and some things like that did have that CGI aspect to them,
Yeah,
and that I think
think-
that's why it was a win.
yeah.
Have you seen that yet, Dom, or no?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
it's
You've
it's
seen the 82
phenomenal.
movie, though, right?
What's that again?
You've seen the 82 movie, though, right?
Oh yeah. I'm very familiar
All right,
with
yeah,
Dark
you should
Crystals
watch
and
it. It's
everything,
pretty
but
good, and
Uh,
especially what we're talking about tonight, you'll grow to appreciate it a little bit more when you watch it.
Yeah, and so watching through the special, like the
Making of.
the making of stuff. Thank you. Like the reason, like it made me kind of feel sad. You know what I mean? Watching that stuff, because they don't do that stuff anymore.
Mm-mm.
Like everything is on a CG level. You know what I mean? Aside from, specific directors that want practical effects.
It's
what I
usually
mean?
horror movies.
Yeah, like horror. Yeah, especially horror movies. That's like where it's mainly maintained.
Well, I'm curious, JD, what's more expensive?
As far as what?
Like what the practical effect, as like let's say we're talking about puppetry tonight, right? So like the puppetry, or would the CGI be
The puppetry
more
is
expensive?
Oh, definitely.
I mean,
puppetry.
I don't know. I think it would even out. I don't know, because you're still paying a team of programmers to come up with. They got to build this character on a computer, and then they got to. Yeah, they got to. Yep. They got to.
You gotta animate it and
I think-
design it. And,
Yeah, maybe logistically it just makes more sense to do.
but I
CGI.
can see with the computer with CGI is getting cheaper over the years to the point where programs are developed to do all these things. So the repercussions and economies of scale will just get cheaper over time.
Well,
But
yeah,
with
they don't have to reinvent the wheel in the
exactly
CG anymore.
Exactly.
You
Whereas
understand what I mean, though? Like when
Yeah.
I say it makes me sad. You know what I mean?
I
You don't get your puppet Yoda anymore. You don't get.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
I get that. Like I get the part where you're like, where's the world going? Like we're
But, like-
losing that art form.
That
The reality is-
hands-on art. That is what I know. You know what I mean? That's
But
I'm
look
not good at.
look what we just got with the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. That wasn't expected. That was what 30 something years in the making. Like
And even
But I-
if like, oh, sorry, go Chan. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, with people like John Favreau and Filoni getting involved in the Star Wars game right now, I feel like they're going to keep that momentum going. And now with the new Dark Crystal stuff being thrown in there, and they're finding out that puppeteers and CGI can work together, I feel like that it's going to bring that Muppet and that puppet type, I don't know, functionality work back into.
You're a poet and you didn't know it.
But like what he said, like when back when Dark Crystal the original came out, it was like those other guys was like, oh, those Dark Crystal guys are like, now I have to set the bar.
Yeah,
they set the bar at that time. So I think with hearing from you in this Dark Crystal the prequel that they just put out, I think they're setting the bar again. They're setting the bar and saying, you don't have to go full CG, and you can involve the puppeteering and CG together to basically develop a good product. And if this takes off to the point where it's doable, I think you're going to see movies trying to get to that bar where they're setting now. So it might be another another standard that they're setting, like they did back in the 80s. So it's a great thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see more original projects like that, using and blending the styles together.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I mean, this could just be the beginning of it. I mean, they're doing obviously a second season for the Dark Crystal.
It's not been announced yet.
Well, I mean, the story's not done, right? But
No, the story's not done. They have room for more storytelling, but nothing's been officially announced yet.
okay.
Yeah,
And
there'll
then
be more.
and
They gotta wipe everybody out yet. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's the start of the movie, right?
Yeah, we need more toys before the next season. Yeah.
you think they'll touch on, like, maybe remember how Jim Henson had that TV show back in the day? They used to air on like Channel 7 or something. No, it was an actual show where it was human involvement, but there was some puppets in it, and it was called Jim Henson's like story.
I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
And I used to watch that shit. Was pretty good.
she remembers that. I don't remember it.
It was a little more like, for me,
Yes.
watching it as a kid, it was a little adult like, like deeper stories. If they bring that back, would you guys be interested in watching something like that?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Storyteller is what it was called. Jim Henson's Storyteller.
Right.
I have to check that out. I don't remember that. Maybe I do. I don't know. I remember Amazing Stories.
That's
No.
similar. I mean, it's similar. I mean, some of the stories they always had like a, like some kind of a focal point. You know what I mean? Like, I remember watching one, and it was a bunch of like devilish puppets, and trying to make it into the way to heaven. And I think that's
I do remember that, JD.
Yep.
what's that? Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm thinking of.
Uh-huh.
They were trying to get back into heaven, so it had like some kind of morals to it. The stories.
They're talking about Jim Henson's Storyteller.
I love that.
That I mean, they just did again. We just did Dark Crystal. Who's to say they're not going to do Labyrinth?
Is that your?
That's the thing. Those
Devil.
things.
That's freaky, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Labyrinth, man, I haven't watched that in forever. Is that streaming anywhere right now?
No,
I don't
Labyrinth?
know, but if somebody
what
finds out, I want to know.
Jennifer Connelly. Yeah.
I think that's on. I forgot where it was on.
We'll
I thought
find
I saw
it.
it.
We'll find.
I don't know.
Bots in disguise says, "What about Fraggle Rock?" We spoke about that a little earlier in the show.
Dude,
Every-
I didn't have HBO when I was a kid, so
I got
Every time so he says Fraggle Rock, the theme song just starts
Yes.
in my head all over again
Oh,
every
dude,
time.
Fraggle Rock,
my dad was a cable man before he became a cop, and he was a cable man for HBO. So
nice.
my mom worked there too. She was a receptionist there, and my godfather was like a vice president or whatever at the time. And I used to have free HBO until, of course, like everybody started leaving their jobs. Like my dad became a cop, my mom got another job, my godfather, died, whatever. But I had free HBO. It was like I felt like the coolest kid on the block because none of the kids had it growing up.
damn.
We had it. It's one of the only things that we did have growing up in the poorest across the track area.
Was it Channel 6 for you?
No. It was. I think it was in the 20s for us.
What? HBO?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember what it was back in the old days.
because back in the day, you only had like 12 channels or something like that. Channel
You had a
2,
couple.
Channel 4, Channel 5, 7, 9, 11, 13.
We had nearly nothing, but my dad wanted that cable. He had to have it.
Yeah.
We didn't
We
have
found-
cable. My dad was a snobby bastard, so he had a satellite dish.
Oh shit! Oh, fancy.
Yeah,
I had tinfoil on my rabbit ears. That's what I had. Remember
The
that?
whole get up, like
My grandparents had that.
all wrapped around.
Oh, yeah.
tinfoil.
Yeah.
The whole thing, right?
Yep.
My grandparents
Amplify
had that. And then
Amplify
come
that
visit me.
signal, man.
My grandparents had the aluminum foil on the antennas on the the rabbit
there
ears,
we go.
and then they would come and visit us, and they'd say about how fancy our TV was.
My grandma had one of those big aerial antennas that you actually had to turn the dial in a certain
Yep.
direction. The thing on the house would spin.
Yep. My grandparents do that, and I used to turn it from one end to the other, go outside and like look at it move.
Yeah, I did the same shit. And like by the time you got out there to the other end of the house where it was already halfway through its rotation. You're like, damn it, I missed the start of it.
Yep. Then it's like it's time for the stories, and then they'd have to turn it to like the direction of where guiding light came from. I remember. It was
Nice.
crazy.
Towards the
Okay.
sun.
Okay, so who's your favorite Sesame Street character?
Oscar the fucking Grouch, man.
Oscar the Grouch.
I'd have to go with Grover.
I mean,
maybe.
Grover's a close second.
Forever.
Like Super Grover, that was like some of my favorite shit. Was seeing. Super
Oh,
Grover.
Really?
Yeah, Super Grover.
Yeah.
Dude, I used to love like Cookie
And
Monster
anytime I
was my
saw Cookie
favorite.
Monster, I had to have a cookie.
Yeah, Cookie Monster was my favorite. You always
Dude.
fuck up shit. Why am I cooking?
Do you guys? There was a Grover book. I don't know if you guys ever read
A
it.
monster
the
at the
monster.
end of this book.
And he
Mhm.
remember he had like he would like it would like they draw tape on the pages or he'd like cement up the pages
I
of the wall
love
and he'd
them.
turn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I had that.
Yeah, dude.
And,
That's so cool.
yeah,
I also
because he
love
didn't want
this.
you to turn the pages. He was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to concrete this. I'm going to brick this page up so you can't turn the page.
Yep.
And be like,
Of all the
ah,
things-
you did it again.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that book had a spine by the time I was like in my mid-teens because my sisters were all 5 years apart and they were younger than me, and of course that gets read to them, and then
Hand me down. Yeah.
Oh, dude, Raphael, he mentioned on Sesame Street there's a skit with Grover and as a waiter, and then that guy, the blue guy, he was like bald and he had the hair by his ears and the mustache, remember? And he'd be like, "There's a fly in my soup" or some shit.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, waiter, there's a fly in my
Yeah.
soup.
that was like
Huh?
pre-game for Saturday Night Live as a kid.
A fly in your soup in this establishment?
I always found Grover and his chickens really fucking creepy.
It's Gonzo with the chickens,
Oh,
man.
Gonzo. Sorry, Gonzo. Yeah, you're right.
It's funny that we're talking about this and my kid still watches this today.
That's the good. That's because it's good.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
works.
Yep.
I learned so much from Sesame Street. You know,
Dude, Sesame Street followed by Mr. Rogers. That was like the perfect morning.
Hey, dude. You learned how to count, spell, and have
That
good
was the
manners.
Muppets.
And Reading Rainbow. Can't forget Reading Rainbow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that
Reading
came
Rainbow
later.
was awesome.
Yeah, my mom, I remember whenever I'd visit her, man, that channel, it was stuck on channel 13, PBS, all the time. That's what we
PBS.
watched. Like Degrassi High, all that crap was on there.
Degrassi High.
321 Contact.
Oh yeah, and the Electric Company as well. That was a cool show.
See, I never watched The Electric Company. I was never going to big into that.
That's actually where Morgan Freeman got his start. He was Vincent the Vegetable Vampire on there.
How the fuck do you know that?
When I was
Because
a boy,
hasn't it been established that my brain is a sponge of mild, useless trivia?
when I was a boy, I was on a show called The Electric Company.
Well, I guess we could reminisce in the chat. I think we lost JD and Chan. We lost our special guest tonight. So
Yeah.
I guess the four of us will wrap this up. Josh, I'll let you go first. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sorry the audio wasn't that great, but you know, it is what it is.
Have I been cutting out to you guys? Or?
Oh no. No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I wish we had gotten to ask him some more questions because I did have a couple more that I thought of, but then, it happens. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Oh, am I
No
supposed to tell them where they
problem,
can find me?
Damn right.
Oh, well, come back tomorrow night. I'll be on an episode of Figure Banging with Brian and Ace and JD. Yeah. And then come back Friday night, and you can catch me and Nick and Russ and Rob and Sam on our shenanigans on NPSP Theater on this very channel.
Damn, man, you
And,
go for the
you can-
trifecta this week on the Rock Channel.
And you can also catch me on the All Queued Up podcast I do with my friend Greg that publishes on Fridays on audio platforms. And just follow me in the group, just myself. So
Cool.
that's me.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks again, guys.
How about you, Dom?
You can find me here Tuesday nights with you guys, and on the group's Dominic Grasso, and that's about it. I do have an Instagram account, but I don't. I'm gonna do something with Instagram. I'm gonna just and try to get some photos up there of a project that I'm gonna start doing. So see what happens.
Brian, you having fun over there?
Yeah, dude. I'm just clicking buttons.
I was like, am I doing that?
He's just running through. He's just likes interrupting me.
Hey, look, man. It's past 9:30. It's all bonus time now, and I gotta
Oh,
pee.
really?
Yeah,
You gotta
dude.
pee?
So Brian, should
Hey,
tell me where to
Brian,
find
you
you.
gotta go to the bathroom.
I need you to drain my essence.
I don't have
You know,
two cups of water to pour back and forth. Sorry.
That's all right.
Jeez.
I'm close to a sink.
Oh, I'm not eating at Josh's house. Wait, did we just hear?
No,
water
he was
pour
talking.
out?
Yeah, that was.
Heard it.
That's what Dom was referring to, pouring water back and forth to make you have to go pee. So I turned the faucet on. I don't pee in my sink, Brink.
Oh,
God.
Just on Tuesdays. Come on.
I
oh,
have a
man.
bucket for that.
Oh,
That's right.
Brian, let them know
Bucket.
let everybody know where to find you. Aside
Brian
from the
Brink,
toilet.
Brian Brink in the Facebook groups at Brink Lives on Instagram. Hope you guys enjoyed the guest we had on tonight, and yeah, you'll see me again tomorrow too, of course. Damn it.
Yay.
Brian JD. I mean, it's Brian JD. JD and Chan.
Yeah, sorry we hopped out there. We lost internet. You go first.
Oh, Chandra Cooper on Facebook, Wookieeming Pocket on Instagram, and Pocket Wookie on Xbox.
Cool, yo. And I'm
And you
Energon Addict
Oh.
wait,
You all know oh, JD didn't go? I thought he went.
Oh, wow.
It's fine.
Go.
Whoa.
I
I'm
get
just
it.
trying to wrap this up.
Fuck me. I get it.
Want to
That's
see
cool.
my puppet?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Man.
I was
Pigment
just-
Surgery on Instagram and Xbox Live. Every Tuesday here with these fellas. Tomorrow night, all new Figure Banging. Tune in.
Don't give him any spoilers, JD. We like to keep it a
No
surprise.
spoilers. Yep, it's a surprise.
Oh! Guys,
Where
are
you-
so
where you at,
clever.
Dave?
You guys are so clever.
I'm out.
Say it with me now. Really?